Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, Senate Bill 406 ensures that Texas birth certificates remain accurate, consistent, and reflective of biological reality. A birth certificate, like a death certificate, is a snapshot in time that records accurate vital statistics existing at birth. A birth certificate states God-given sex, either XX or XY. President Trump has a nationwide executive order recognizing just two sexes, biological males and biological females, which expressly excludes gender identity. Governor Abbott has also signed an agency directive to follow the executive order and disregard court orders to change sex on birth certificates and driver's licenses. DPS and Department of State Health Services no longer recognize these unlawful court orders to amend sex on birth certificates that were not based in any state cause of action. And this bill reiterates in our state code that what Texas is already doing under the federal executive order and Governor Abbott's directive will stand. It also closes a loophole courts created with no authority to try and change vital statistics from the time of birth. This legislation is a necessary extension of the work we have already done in Texas to protect fairness in girls and women's sports and uphold the integrity of sex-based distinctions, work that began with Senate Bill 15 and House Bill 25 and Girls and Women's Privacy and Safety Acts. With the passage of HB 25 in the 87th session, we took a stand for female athletes in K through 12 sports by ensuring that students compete on teams that align with their biological sex as recorded on their birth certificate. In the 88th, we built upon that foundation with Senate Bill 15, expanding these protections to college athletics so that women at all levels of competition in Texas are not forced to compete against biological males. These bills were critical in safeguarding fairness, safety, opportunities, scholarships, and championships for female athletes. But as we have seen, the push to redefine sex in legal documents can create loopholes that could undermine these protections. Senate Bill 406 closes one of these loopholes by ensuring that birth certificates accurately reflect a person's biological sex at birth and cannot be amended to change this designation based on gender identity. Birth certificates are legal documents that serve as a foundation for sex-based protections in sports, medical care, and privacy laws. Texans overwhelmingly support keeping women's sports for women, and SB 406 ensures that our laws remain grounded in biological facts as well as protecting Title IX. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this bill is not about restricting anyone's personal expression. It is about ensuring that legal documents reflect accurate statistics and that our laws can be effectively enforced. By keeping birth certificates fact-based, we are taking another step to preserve fairness and integrity of women's sports and other sex-based protections, as well as safety for women in private spaces. With that, I yield for questions.
Thank you, Senator Middleton. Senator Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this bill. I think it's sorely needed. And your comment about we have executive orders covering this, we know that's only good for as long as the person who signed that executive order is in office. And so if we want this to be law for Texas, we've got to have this. It's a temporary protection. I commend our governor for recognizing the need to do this and stepping up with an executive order to fill the gap until we could get a bill like this passed, and I think that's good. The question I have is, does this extend to other official IDs? A driver's license, concealed carry license, fishing license, hunting license, anything else that the state issues, will that be covered by this?
Yes, the answer is yes, because, as you know, for example, driver's license, you have to produce a birth certificate. Well, what this bill would require is that it's your at-birth sex, right? That's right. What's going to be on your birth certificate. So yes, it would include that, or any other state license where you have to produce either your driver's license or your birth certificate. This bill is going to require that your at-birth sex is what's on those state documents.
Okay. The reason I asked, I couldn't find that in there. It's very clear on the birth certificate, and there's no question we need this because we've had Health and Human Services sending requests to counties to change birth certificates, directives to tell them to change
Right.
birth certificates. And this will put an end to that crazy practice. But I could not get from it, and if you tell me it's in there, that's fine, because I think it's important that this be a blanket for anything that anybody uses for an ID, that that's who they are.
Right, and I'll give you an example, like for college, you apply to college, you get your student ID. Well, when you apply, you got to turn over a copy of your birth certificate, right? So that would, translate into that further down the stream, right? That's downstream of the birth certificate issue, but this will ensure that happens.
The student would have said, well, here's my birth certificate, but I'm really not Bill Jones, I'm Janice Jones. And they issue a card, they will not be able to do that.
So you have to submit, as we went through in Senate Bill 15 and Senator Perry's HB 25, it's entered at or near the time of birth, right?
No, I understand it for the birth certificate, but when someone says, yeah, well, here's my birth certificate, this is who I am, but on this ID, I want to be known as you can put Bill on there, but put Janice in parentheses or whatever.
That may be a different issue if you're talking about, say, for example, private entities like private colleges and
State colleges.
Okay, state colleges, they have to.
Or any of the other IDs.
Right. Typically, with any sort of state license or application for a license or an ID in any form, you do have to submit your birth certificate. And this essentially would guarantee that downstream of making sure your birth certificate is accurately reflecting your sex at the time of birth. And then it would essentially carry over into any of those future applications for state IDs and licenses as well.
Mm-hmm. And this would clearly stop any county, somebody coming in and say, I need to change I want a new birth certificate. They would not be able to do that.
That's correct. Right now, the only way to change sex is by court order, and this bill prohibits that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good.
Thanks, Senator Hall. So, Senator Middleton, so then by addressing this at the birth certificate level, that's the fount from which all these other licenses, IDs would flow. Is that accurate?
Correct, yes. Yep. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions for the author? So we'll open testimony and call as a resource witness Tara Das, State Registrar of Vital Statistics from the Department of State Health Services, to help us walk through the practical effects of the bill. Das, take your time. Welcome. Glad you're here. Take a seat there, and when you get situated, introduce yourself. Tell us who you're with, and we'll have a couple of questions for you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Tara Das. I'm the State Registrar from the Department of State Health Services, here as a resource witness.
Thank you, Ms. Das. And Senator Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you for being here. My question is really straightforward. Currently, the Health and Human Services practice is somebody comes in and wants their birth certificate changed, you send an order to the county asking them to change the birth certificate. Will this bill put an end to that practice?
So currently, when someone needs to apply for an amendment to their birth certificate, it's only done at the state. And then when we approve that application to process the amendment to the birth certificate, we send to the local registrar, serves as the local official over that birth certificate. We send them a copy of it so they have the same record on file that we do. So with this bill, we would process at the state amendments in alignment with this bill and then send to the local registrar the version so that they can issue that. Local registrars do not amend birth certificates independent of the state.
No, I understand, but they've been receiving instructions from you to amend them.
They receive a copy of the amended birth certificate, so they have the same record on file that we do.
Oh, but with it, they're being told, that's what I've had from registrars, to issue the person a new birth certificate and change their records, right? Change their county records to reflect that change.
Yes, because all local registrars are to maintain a duplicate set of records to what we have at the state. So
Okay.
that's true across.
Will this bill end that practice?
We will continue to, every time that we approve an amendment to a birth or a death certificate, send to the local so they have the same copy to issue.
Will you be able to, with this bill passed, will you still be able to amend a birth certificate to change a person's gender identification?
So we do not collect gender on the birth certificate, we collect sex, and with this bill, we would...
Excuse me, their sex. Will you be able to change their sex on their birth certificate?
In alignment with this bill, because it allows for changing the sex for clerical errors, or if the sex, I think, was ambiguous or unknown at the time of birth. That's in the bill.
You can only change it for clerical errors.
Correct.
Okay, so that going forward, this bill will put an end to people being able to change that on their own, coming to you. Okay.
Correct.
That's my question.
Okay.
That's what, make sure that we've got a bill that's doing what we want it to do, what Senator Middleton intends for it to do.
Senator Hall, thank you. Members, any other questions for Ms. Doss? Thanks for your testimony. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Well, the chair opens invited testimony and call Vanessa Savage. Vanessa Savage for Senate Bill 406. And after we hear from Ms. Savage, we will open up public testimony and begin to call witnesses. So if you've registered to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 406, please make your way into the Senate chamber so that we can hear from you in a few minutes. Ms. Savage, welcome. Introduce yourself, get close to that mic, and give us your testimony.
Thank you so much for having me today. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Vanessa Savage, and it is my honor to testify in support of Senate Bill 406. I'm a pediatric nurse with 10 years of experience caring for the health, safety, and well-being of children. I'm also the founder and president of Protecting Texas Children. For the past 6 years, I worked as a nurse at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, the #1 pediatric hospital in the United States. Last year, I came forward to sound the alarm after seeing a pattern of deceit, illegal billing, and fraudulent misdiagnosing at the hospital. I blew the whistle to reveal how Texas Children's Hospital had not only lied about the existence of their transgender program, but were actively, illegally using Texas Medicaid funds to cover irreversible gender transition procedures for minors. A large part of my testimony revolved around the particular and specific ways in which the hospital defrauded Texas Medicaid insurance programs, which brings me to my testimony today. One of the ways that the hospital concealed their illegal billing of hormones to Medicaid was through this loophole in Texas law allowing anyone to change their sex on their birth certificate. I saw dozens of examples during my day-to-day in which the sex listed on the patient's official medical record was their preferred gender identity and not reflective of the biological sex they were born with. For some of you, this reality is hard to believe. How is it possible that a multi-million-dollar medical institution with global recognition would engage in deceitful manipulation of a person's sexual identity by ignoring biological realities? I can assure you this was happening in plain sight, and the reason for this was to avoid detection by Texas Medicaid insurance companies. When a child has an incorrect sex on file who is simultaneously receiving a cross-sex hormone for a false diagnosis like estrogen deficiency or a testosterone deficiency, this web of lies makes it unbelievably difficult for insurance companies to detect fraud. Imagine for a moment with me that a child is rushed into the emergency room with a life-threatening emergency where time is of the essence. The attending doctor reviews the chart for the two most important facts about the patient in front of him: the age and the sex. In the medical profession, these two fundamental characteristics about the patient determines everything, including the personalized and specific course of treatment and the dosage of medication prescribed. Imagine the disastrous, life-threatening, and unsafe consequences that would ensue from a doctor treating a male instead of a female, or vice versa, all because the patient was permitted by law to change their birth certificate to reflect their preferred gender identity. The patient would undoubtedly be harmed as a result. Currently, Texas law permits individuals to amend their birth certificate to reflect their gender identity, but Senate Bill 406 corrects this by mandating that birth certificates record an individual's biological sex at birth, defined in 3 ways: by physical characteristics, chromosomes, or endogenous profiles. This bill restricts changes to the recorded sex unless correcting a clerical error or when the sex was initially undetermined due to atypical or ambiguous characteristics. This ensures that birth certificates accurately reflect biological sex, which will result not only in greater transparency in our medical institutions, but most importantly in safe patient outcomes. This bill, if passed, would literally save lives. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Senators, any questions for our witness? Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We'll open public testimony on Senate Bill 406, and the chair calls Paul Hale, Denise Siebert, Kelly Niedert, Amanda McLaughlin, Landon Ritchie. So we got Mr. Hale, got Ms. Siebert. We're looking for Kelly Niedert, Amanda McLaughlin, Landon Ritchie. All right, we'll begin on my left, your right. Ms. Siebert, welcome back. When you're on the end, you have to especially get close to the microphone because of where they are from the end of the table. So you've done it before. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony. Welcome.
My name is Denise Seibert. I am representing myself. I am in support of SB406. Thank you, Senator Middleton, for this bill. Thank you, senators, for hearing me today. We should always have the biological sex on the birth certificate. You can't change your DNA or chromosomes, neither by surgery or drugs. Some may believe they are the opposite sex or sexually fluid, but nothing can change your DNA or chromosomes. While watching Shark Week a few years ago, the narrator described a shark as it's a male shark, easily identifiable by 2 reproductive organs on the underside called claspers. We don't deny sex of animals. Why do we ignore the truth of human sexual organs or body parts at birth? It isn't assigned at birth. We are created, male and female. Genesis 1:27, so God created man in his image. In the image of him, he created, of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Feelings change, but our biological sex and DNA and chromosomes don't. Allowing people to change their sex on their birth certificate is harmful and dangerous for people of the opposite sex. Males claiming to be females are endangering women and girls as their private spaces are invaded by males. I had a male come into a women's shower facility at a Corps of Engineers there in Stillhouse Lake to hang out with his lady friend. All I had was a shower curtain between me and him. I felt violated. My privacy was taken away from me, and I was scared to even scream because what would he do to me? Then during the last legislative session, I had a man dressed as a woman into the women's bathroom here at the Capitol. Why do I, as a biological woman, give up my rights and privacy and safety because males want to feel like a woman? Thank you for hearing me today.
Ms. Seibert, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Hale, welcome back. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
My name is Paul Hale. I'm from Cass County. I'm representing myself and my household. and I am for this bill, and I want to thank the committee and our committee chairman, Senator Hughes, for allowing me to testify, and thank you, Senator Middleton, for bringing this bill. I am for this bill. First of all, and how important of a bill it is, it's the very first document, this birth certificate that he mentions here. It's the very first document in a person's life. That makes it so important. And so that cornerstone document that so many more will spring from has so much importance, and for all the obvious reasons that we see in the so-called woke movement that brings so much confusion in our culture, in our colleges, in our schools, in our politics, and so many more. And it is the most distinguishing thing about a child, those two organs. And then there's that other trail. But Senator Middleton was so complete with this bill because he thought of those other things, and he addressed those tough questions that come. And I don't understand those things, but he addressed them, and they're there. And this thing is completely fair. But the most important thing is a little infant baby deserves this, and he deserves to have his beginning document start on a foundation of truth instead of underneath a cloud of confusion. I thank y'all very much for letting me testify today.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Thanks for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Yeah. Name is Amanda McLaughlin. I'm here representing myself. I am against the bill. I thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I'm Amanda McLaughlin, and I am a woman. Documentation is important for employment, business transactions, safety, and mental health. Being outed because documentation does not affirm who you are can lead to job loss, mental health issues, harassment, and safety issues. This bill states biological sex is determined by sex organs, chromosomes, and endogenous profile. It is well documented that many people have ambiguous sex organs. Many people do not have XX or XY chromosomes. The bill even admits it may not be possible to tell a baby's gender at birth, and provides a provision to add this designation for sex later. This bill shows the difficulty of defining biological sex and how subjective it is. This bill is an attack on transgender people. I ask why society works so hard to villainize and hate me. What do they fear? I'm a human being. I want the same things as everyone. I'm not a monster. This is not a fetish for me, nor did I wake up one day and decide to be a woman. I've always been a woman. I sacrificed a good career and 13-year relationship to be the woman I am. I can't imagine living as anyone other than Amanda. I have gone to doctors, psychiatrists, courts, counselors that all confirm that I am a woman. There is so much hatred from people who don't know us. It is easy to dehumanize and demonize people when you don't know them. People are motivated by fear when they don't understand. How many of you know a transgender person? If you don't get to know us, have a conversation with a transgender person. Rather than fear that we don't understand, we should try to grow. We have learned that the world is round and people with epilepsy are not possessed by the devil. Our lives are so much richer when we are open to growing. I thank you for listening and ask you not to advance Senate Bill 406 so that transgender people are not rejected or harassed because of documentation that doesn't match who they are.
And thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. Thanks for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Hello, my name is Kelly Neidert, and I'm the Executive Director of Texas Coalition for Kids. Thank you for this opportunity to testify in support of Senate Bill 406, which is critical to maintaining integrity of official records and protecting students in Texas schools. In January, administrators in Dallas ISD and Irving ISD were caught advising on legal loopholes that would allow students that identify as transgender to play in sports teams opposite their actual sex. These administrators specifically identified changing a student's birth certificate as a way to bypass existing policies. This blatant manipulation of legal records underscores why this legislation is needed. Birth certificates are foundational legal records that must reflect biological reality, not subjective identity claims. Allowing them to be altered undermines their accuracy and enables policies that create unfair advantages in sports and other areas where sex-based distinctions exist for a reason. Without this bill, students, especially girls in sports, will continue to face situations that compromise their safety and competitive opportunities. Passing this bill affirms truth, fairness, and secures the well-being of students. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself, get close to the mic, and give us your testimony.
Morning, committee members. My name is Landon Ritchie. I'm the policy coordinator for TENT, the Transgender Education Network of Texas. I am a transgender man, and I'm speaking in opposition to SB 406. I want you just for a second to think about all the reasons you need a birth certificate. For folks who are afforded the privilege of being able to navigate life without having to think about what their identity documents say, because of this, pinpointing those issues may not come easily. So here's a quick list. You need a birth certificate in any instance where you need to prove your identity, age, or citizenship. When applying for government-issued IDs like a passport book, card, driver's license, replacement social security card. Applying for government benefits, registering a child in a new school or transferring schools, joining the military, joining sports, accessing pension or insurance benefits, proving your identity to banks, proving your identity to prospective employers, and more. Now imagine not possessing a form of government identification that accurately reflects your person. You're left with two options: avoiding partaking in many aspects of public life so as to reduce the frequency of instances in which you are forced to out yourself, or presenting documentation that conflicts with other forms of ID that are in alignment with who you are. The end result is isolation, the incentive for others to discriminate against you, and the placement of targets on the backs of an already vulnerable group of people. When trans and gender expansive and intersex folks cannot make necessary and reasonable changes to their birth certificates, while other demographics of people are still afforded the ability to do so through clerical changes, not only does the government violate equal protection under the law, but it sanctions transphobic violence by encouraging outright disregard for trans life. Bills such as this encourage a sick fixation with trans people's bodies and lives and mandating cruelty through bureaucracy. But try as this legislature might, transgender people will not cease to exist, and our existence is not up for debate. I urge you to vote against SB 406.
And thank you for your testimony. Senators, any questions for any of our witnesses? We thank each of you for being here. You're excused. Thank you very much. Continuing public testimony on Senate Bill 406, the chair calls Megan Benton, Autumn Lawner, Megan Fairbanks, Krista Gaston, and Alan Morris. Again, it looks like we have Ms. Benton looking for Autumn Lawner, Megan Fairbanks, Krista Gaston, Alan Morris. And the chair calls Emily French. All right. Welcome. We'll start over on my left, your right. Welcome back. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Megan Benton. I'm the Strategic Policy Associate for Texas Values. I'm here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 406. Texas Values is the largest organization in the state of Texas standing for faith, family, and freedom. I want to express my gratitude to the committee and Senator Middleton for taking the time to address this important issue. Birth certificates are important legal documents, and their accuracy is something that should be taken seriously. Inaccurate birth certificates have real-life consequences that put women and children in vulnerable positions. In recent years, this has become an issue as some have tried to alter the integrity of his or her birth certificate in order to fit it with a desired gender identity rather than biological reality. Frankly, this is a matter of public safety and public record. If a man can legally change his birth certificate to say he is a woman, then it's possible to get a driver's license, passport, and social security card that also say he's female. Last year, the Texas Department of Public Safety stopped allowing people to change their sex on a driver's license by getting a court order or altered birth certificate. This action helped to rectify the problem, but this bill would help make these policies permanent. With a government identification card that contains inaccurate information regarding a person's sex, the door is wide open for criminal activity and unfairness. For example, a biological male may be able to access women's facilities while women are using them. This is a violation of the rights of women and children and must be addressed. Women should feel safe to use the restroom, locker room, or shelter without having to worry about a man walking in. Another example of how an altered birth certificate causes harm is women and girls sports. Having inaccurate legal documents can lead to great confusion. By passing SB 402, you will be providing much needed clarity to the current situation. We don't allow people to change their birth certificate, so their age on their birth certificate, so why would we allow someone to change their gender? SB 406 makes it crystal clear that it's vital to public safety to have an accurate birth certificate in the state of Texas. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Ms. French, welcome back. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
I'm Emily E.B. French for Common Cause Texas. I am here to testify in opposition to SB 406. There has been a push at both the state and federal level to require documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. This is highly relevant to SB 406. Neither this legislature nor any other will ever be able to stop transgender people from existing. If they exist as citizens of our nation and our state, they must be able to vote. I am worried that this bill will work in conjunction with a documentary proof of citizenship bill to disenfranchise transgender Texans. If we reach a point where each citizen has to show their birth certificate to register to vote, and a person who lives and presents as a woman is forced to show a birth certificate that lists her as male, will the election official or DPS officer who reviews that birth certificate have to mark it as fraudulent? Will the transgender individual be required to bring in additional proof that they are transgender? Will that additional proof be illegal before too long? Could a person be found in violation of any of the new or existing criminal penalties for voter fraud simply for using an ID that does not match the gender on their birth certificate? What is this legislature's plan to preserve the voting rights of transgender Texans under SB 406? I would like to see this bill voted down, but at the bare minimum, you must not pass this bill without protections for the voting rights of transgender Texans. Otherwise, we will be forced to conclude that disenfranchising trans voters is not a bug of this bill, but a feature. Thank you.
And thanks for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Alan Morris. I'm the Director of Policy for the National LGBTQ Task Force. Today I come to you as someone from Beaumont, Texas. I am leading a policy department that is navigating many things. We are in opposition of Senate Bill 406. And I want to appeal to each of you to humanize this situation, to see trans and intersex people as your neighbors and as individuals who deserve dignity. A vote for this bill is a vote of conscience, and it is a vote towards your legacy on how you viewed each individual and their humanization aspects. This proposed legislation has dangerous consequences, such as violence, discrimination, and misgendering. No one deserves to be mistreated, even in the midst of principled struggle. And I'm sure you all may have never heard of principled struggle. We may not agree on what it may look like, but we have to agree that humans deserve the dignity to live and exist and have documentation that identifies with what they want, right? Even in the midst of the approach or how you may see it. Furthermore, rather than documents that are able to physically name who an individual is, I want each of you to consider what your children or what someone who you love may have to deal with if in the event they may not have that documentation. Similar to Black people in this country who were not given birth certificates nor who were seen as citizens after building this country. And I want each of you to lean in to what it means to say, I'm going to go against the grain, and I'm going to say that I'm going to humanize these individuals, even though I may not understand it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Autumn Launer. I'm a transgender Texan. I'm also the Vice President of the Texas Transgender Non-Discrimination Scholars, here testifying for myself as well as our organization in opposition of SB 406. Simply put, this bill is a solution in search of a problem. It creates barriers without solving anything, making it more difficult for transgender Texans to access education, employment, and housing. A mismatched birth certificate creates confusion and blocks stability. Transgender students without accurate IDs face bureaucratic obstacles that block college enrollment and financial aid, limiting our future opportunities. Research shows that transgender people denied accurate IDs face higher rates of job loss, housing insecurity, and financial instability. A 2020 study published in The Lancet found that those with updated IDs had lower rates of psychological distress and suicidal ideation, reinforcing that legal recognition is a public health issue. A 2021 study on transgender Texans found that updated IDs reduced the likelihood of job discrimination, eviction, and homelessness. SB406 traps people in instability, blocking access to financial aid, jobs, and housing while worsening mental health. Despite this evidence, we're here debating whether to weaponize government overreach to cause tangible harms to Texans instead of addressing real problems. This bill does not strengthen our state, it weakens it. It pushes people out of education, harms our workforce, and creates barriers to stable housing while worsening mental health outcomes. Texas is better than abusing state power to restrict its citizens' freedom for the sake of virtue signaling to billionaires in Washington. Reject this bill. Harming Texans does not make Texas stronger. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. And welcome. Get close to the mic and introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Good morning, members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. My name is Megan Fairbanks. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm here this morning to register my opposition to SB 406. I'd also like to state for the record that I'm not a shark. I'm a transgender woman. While I've known that I was different since the age of 13, I didn't start my transition until the age of 47. Transition for me has been one of the scariest and most challenging things in my life that I have ever done. Despite those challenges, transition has absolutely been the best and most rewarding decision that I have ever made. I would need well more than the allotted time to tell you of all the ways that transition has positively affected my life. Part of my transition has included updating my birth certificate to align with the identity that I've always known myself to be. Although I wasn't born in Texas, Texas has been my home for the vast majority of my life. I prefer not to name the state that I was born in, but let's just say that it's a state that fought on the side of the Confederacy during the Civil War, a state whose leaders believe in values such as small government. I personally believe, as I'm sure many of you do as well, that government interference into the personal lives of private citizens should be held to a minimum. In the time since I've gotten my birth certificate changed, my birth state has even rolled back some of their restrictive policies that make it harder for folks like me to update their birth certificates. When we pass legislation, is it not with the intent of making folks' lives better or preventing harm? How is this bill doing any of that? I sit here before you as a person who has updated my birth certificate, and I ask you, what harm have I caused society? I don't play sports, and the only thing I want to do in the bathroom is use the bathroom and maybe touch up my makeup and wash my hands. This bill helps no one and only causes harm. It singles out a specific group of people who are already marginalized and face challenges that none of you could possibly imagine. I ask simply that you not vote to advance this bill out of committee. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your testimony. Senators, any questions for any of our witnesses on this panel? Thank you each for being here. Thank you very much. You're excused. Thank you. The chair now calls Mary Elizabeth Castle, Krista Gaston, Angela Lapis, Spencer Cook, Ash Hall. Again, Mary Elizabeth Castle, Krista Gaston, Angela Lapis, Spencer Cook, Ash Hall, and Andrea Segovia. We'll begin over on my left, your right. There you are. Council, introduce yourself and go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman Hughes and members of the committee. My name is Mary Elizabeth Castle, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for Texas Values. It's appropriate and fitting that we're considering SB 406, and I'm testifying in favor of this bill during Women's History Month, as the conversation this session has centered around the definition of woman and how women are being erased. We have seen allowing a person to change their sex on their birth certificate has led to men pretending to be women to invade women's sports, restrooms, and sex-designated spaces. In fact, in some instances, proof of surgical procedures is not needed in order to have a court order. Before current action was taken by an agency, it was simply up to a Texas judge's determination if an individual should have their sex on their birth certificate changed. In my handout that I gave you, and it'll be the first handout that's a one-pager, you will see just how simple the physician recommendation letter is to change your sex on documents in Travis County. Very little proof of transitioning is needed, which means a fully intact male could gain access to women's sex-specific spaces and opportunities. This also means an individual who lived a majority of their lives as a male could even participate in women's athletics, as Senator Middleton described. As we discussed last session, there are physical advantages that develop in early adolescence and late childhood that transition procedures cannot account for and would still make a male claiming to be a woman stronger and faster than a woman competing in the same sport. Most importantly, sex is not a social construct or feeling or opinion. Sex is based on the biological order of the world and is determined by an individual's reproductive organs and ability to reproduce. Animals are female or male, so are plants, and so are vegetables. Government documents should not reflect someone's opinion or feeling, but they must be accurate and state true biological reality. Both the Department of Public Safety and the Department of Health Services have already adopted official policies to stop sex change on birth certificates and driver's license, and this should be clear and established in Texas law, which is why SB 406 is needed. You can reference page 3 of my second handout for this information as what was done last summer and last fall by both of those agencies. Thank you for your time, and please vote in favor of SB 406.
And thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Andrea Segovia. I'm the Senior Policy Director at the Transgender Education Network of Texas. I'm speaking in opposition to SB 406. SB 406 attempts to enshrine gender discrimination into law by barring transgender, non-binary, and gender nonconforming people, including intersex people, from accessing government identification that reflects their person. This bill follows the Attorney General's lead from last fall, where he made his office's mission to stop people from amending their state identification documents to carry out his transphobic agenda. It also seems to be that folks on this committee and even the author of this bill do not realize what this bill actually does. Talking about name changes, bathrooms, locker rooms, or even what is currently occurring to trans Texans by DPS and other state agencies abusing their power is far beyond what this bill does. Obtaining legal documentation of who you are is not a legal loophole. Over 60% of the trans population in Texas do not have IDs that match who they are. It is not as simple as folks are portraying it to be. Since August of 2024, our organization has been talking to hundreds of trans Texans who are currently living in fear because of who they are does not authentically match because of who they are is not reflected by their state documents. No one in our state who contributes to bettering their community deserves this. Trans people deserve the same fairness and freedoms as every other Texan. Trans people are not harming anybody. The conversations that are happening here today and continue to occur in this Capitol are causing the true harm to trans Texans. I urge you to vote no on SB 406.
And thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Hello, esteemed representatives of Texas, staff, and others in attendance.
And get a little closer to the microphone so we can hear you, okay?
Okay. Hello, esteemed representatives of the Texas Senate, staff, and others in attendance. My name is Angela, proud Texan, speaking on behalf of myself. I am strongly opposed to SB 406. This bill, at its core, serves only to amplify discrimination against transgender Texans. The Texas birth certificate serves as a core identifying document necessary and/or sufficient to obtain other legal identification, such as a driver's license, U.S. passport, social security card, or other legally recognized forms of identification requisite for participation in society. We have had, up until recently, a legally verified and thoroughly vetted process for Texans to amend their sex marker on their birth certificate. The sudden inquisition into the validity of this process and parallel creation of SB406 disproportionately and intentionally targets and discriminates against transgender Texans by denying them a birth certificate accurately reflecting their gender. It should not be viewed as fraudulent to want one's birth certificate to accurately reflect one's identity. On the contrary, amending the sex marker on the birth certificate allows transgender Texans fuller participation in society. Numerous studies have shown discriminatory and unequal access to health care, housing, and employment on the basis of being transgender. SB 406 would amplify discriminatory action by outing transgender persons seeking new employment, educational opportunities, and/or public or social services. To amend a birth certificate allows a transgender person to further amend previous or obtain new identifying documents that could mitigate discrimination based solely on the basis of being transgender. Population estimates show approximately 92,000 transgender persons in the state of Texas. So among the 29 million Texas residents, over 28 million have a birth certificate with sex marker that reflects and aligns with their gender identity. On the basis of sex, SB 406 would be viewed as discriminatory as it specifically prohibits the transgender community, but not the cisgender community, from having a birth certificate where sex accurately reflects gender. Esteemed representatives, I urge you to vote no to SB 406. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ash, welcome back. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Ash Hall. I use they, them pronouns. I represent myself and the ACLU of Texas, and I'm here against the bill. Not having accurate identity documents jeopardizes people's health and safety. This is a bill that maybe sounds innocuous, but really does have a lot of life and death implications and even like the ability to access basic services from our governments and from other institutions that we need to stay alive. When someone's ID doesn't reflect who they are, it can create dangerous encounters with police, employers, healthcare providers, and others by outing them as transgender, non-binary, or intersex, and it immediately can put us at risk of harassment, discrimination, bullying, and violence. In fact, the most recent survey done that asked trans people what happened when they were forced to show an ID that did not match their gender identity did show that 2% of those folks were actually subjected to physical violence. And that was a national survey. Texas is the capital for murder of trans people in the United States, especially Black transgender women. I don't think it would just be 2% if this bill passed into law. As it is, it's already dangerous for so many of us to navigate public spaces because of the environment that's been created by this political discussion that we are having about my community. We deserve a lot better than persecution from our government. We are not trying to commit fraud or to trick anybody about who we are. We are actually trying to tell you exactly who we are. And frankly, especially given that we are in this building and the way that this issue has been politicized over the years, every single person in this building has probably used a bathroom at this point with somebody who's transgender, and it turns out all of us were fine. My identity should be in line with my documents, and that goes for everybody here. It's a matter of safety, it's a matter of life and death in some cases, and it's a matter of being able to exist freely in the world and live the way everybody else gets to live.
And thanks for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and get close to that microphone and go ahead.
Hello, thank you, Chair people. My name is Spencer Cook, here testifying opposition to SB 406. I am a Texas-born citizen, born in a hospital here in Austin. Throughout my life, I have gone through school and made friends with many transgender people, each of which have had their own difficulties accessing and getting access to what they need. Specifically, I have had people that have fought for years to get the proper documentation, years and years of fighting, people that still can't get that. I know people who are too afraid to even get the proper documentation in the first place. And these people get politicized heavily into something that seems alien, but these are our workers, these are our friends, these are our family members, these are people that we love. These are people that are close to me personally. And going through school, there was a thing, GSA, Gay Straight Alliance or Gender Sexuality Alliance. It's a group of children, people that pay special attention to these laws, pay special attention to what goes on here in these courts. And I don't know if anyone's aware of this, but every time a piece of anti-trans legislation is passed, there is a spike in trans suicide. There is blood on people's hands here in this building. And I know of many things personally that I will not discuss here. All I want to say is listen to trans people when they tell you how this bill affects them. This does not affect me. This does not, well, in some ways it does, but this does not affect many other people besides just this group of this minority group of people. And I would advocate that each person, each chairman here listens closely to what each trans person has had to say and what each trans person continues to say as more and more legislation continues to pass. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your testimony. And thank you each for being here. Senator Perry, you have the panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to Ash, and I appreciate you. You're always ready. You come in and you do an admirable job for advocating. Here's a question, set the politics aside, and this is strictly, and I know you're not a physician, but obviously there are unique differences between male and female at birth that our medical system addresses it throughout the course of that individual's life. You know, breast cancer being one of those issues, or et cetera. So do you know if a trans woman or a trans male enters a physician's office if they're treated as their biological sex? Because that's where the DNA and the chromosomes and things, for instance, women don't have prostate cancer. So do you have, because when we talk about safety and studies and demographics and things, as our medical profession looks back and tries to do trend analysis and treatments and statistical research and stuff, so does a trans woman in a medical setting get treated as a biological male for treatment? Or I'm just asking, if you don't know, you don't know, and that's okay too. I'm just, it's a foundational issue, right? That doesn't change through the life of a person.
I understand what you're asking. If the doctor's doing their job right, they treat the person as trans. And so they address the person by their name, by their pronouns. They get that medical history if there's been any sort of medical treatment that pertains to this person's gender identity. And then from there, you figure out, exactly, obviously this is a very intimate relationship, the doctor and the patient, but that doctor does have to figure out what this person's body is like and what treatments they may need and what kinds of, as you said, diseases they may need to look out for. But it doesn't have to change the way that that patient is treated as a person, as, per their gender identity. And so to answer your question, it's true that cisgender women are very much not going to be getting prostate cancer. Transgender women, they might. And that's simply the reality that we live in right now, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. A lot of doctors have figured it out already.
So, based on that, it's possible for people that trans fully, surgical and other treatments all the way into the system, and what I'm hearing you say is it's possible they would not have exposure to those diseases that are unique to genders at birth, biological sex.
I think you may be misunderstanding. When I say transgender women, I mean somebody who's transitioned from male to female. And so even though that person has made that transition, they could still have prostate cancer. That's correct.
Right.
And in that case, the doctor doesn't just start treating that person like a man. what they do from there is they treat their patient the way that they want to be treated. They're just also making sure that that person is not going to get prostate cancer.
And with that, that's what I'm going to. There are legitimate differences at birth that can't be changed and that demand, not just in medical settings, but other settings in life. So I guess it's complicated, and I appreciate your perspective, but the reality of the day is there are unique differences that from a medical perspective, it's important to know biological sex so that it doesn't distort results in test and research and treatments in those environments.
And that may be, but that doesn't change that we can still treat people the way that they want to be treated and treat them as who they are.
Yep, go ahead. Get that microphone so we can hear you.
Thank you so much. As the Transgender Education Network of Texas, we've been involved in many study bases in terms of healthcare. Senator Perry, to your point. I would say that in talking to medical researchers, medical students, things like that, having trans people as a population that they can care for who they are actually makes their healthcare better because they're able to see differences, because they're able to catch things differently than maybe a cis male or cis female. It actually advances what you're talking about. I am from Houston. I understand like medical capital, especially worrying about cancer, right? And what we've learned really since 2015 is that when trans people are able to be a part of studies and things like that, their research actually goes further because every body is different, but the ability to see differences in a spectrum of people, right? Thinking about age range, so you have young people, you have elderly people. If we're talking about cancer, that affects their bodies differently. It's the same concept such as that. It's the ability to have a larger spectrum.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to Senator Perry's question? Please go ahead.
Hi, Senator Perry, so in addressing the question you posed, so yes, a transgender woman could get prostate cancer. However, within the medical literature and what the emerging data is showing is that when we look at the hormonal milieu of a transgender patient, after a certain time of being on stable hormone therapy, legally prescribed, supervised hormonal therapy, after an administration of 3 to 6 months at stable dosing, and essentially without additional comorbidities, that we see a change in laboratory values to reflect the expressed gender. In other words, so a transgender woman on hormone therapy, including estradiol and perhaps anti-androgens for a period of 3 to 6 months, on that stable hormonal therapy, their laboratory values, including their CBC, certain chemistries, certain liver tests, certain cardiac profiles, will actually be reflective of a cisgender woman, and vice versa for a transgender man. If they are on stable testosterone or other androgen therapy, after a period of 3 to 6 months, their laboratory test values will also reflect that of a cisgender man. And for the physician at that point, what they are now treating is they treat that patient based on the values, and so they would use the analogs for a cisgender man for that transgender man if they've been on the hormonal therapy for 6 months, and for the transgender woman on hormonal therapy for 6 months, they will use the analog and schemata for a cisgender woman for certain tests. In regards to the question about cancer, yes, so in terms of prostate cancer for a transgender woman, curiously enough, one of the therapies for prostate cancer in cisgender men is actually hormonal therapy. So if a cisgender man does not get their prostate removed for prostate cancer, one of the treatment options is actually anti-androgens and estrogen, so which is actually very similar to the therapy given for transgender women who want to medically and pharmaceutically transition. So in that sense, what we're now learning is that the screening guidelines for cancer among transgender individuals with certain organs, so a transgender man who still has a cervix, we will still follow the recommended cancer screening guidelines for anyone with a cervix, including cisgender women and non-binary individuals with a cervix. For individuals with a prostate, regardless of them being a transgender woman, we will still follow the regular prostate prostate screening guidelines that we have established for cisgender men. In terms of breast cancer, for transgender women on hormonal therapy who have undergone breast development, we are seeing emerging data suggesting a mammogram and other breast cancer screenings in transgender women similar to cisgender women with breast development. So the data in the medical literature is emerging, but we are seeing these changes in the treatment, in our understanding of the treatment, and how these hormones are actually shifting our paradigm of treating, and how we're actually essentially now melding the two of understanding of the cisgender hormonal profiles and how they can actually be applied to the transgender population after a period of stable hormonal therapy.
And thank you for your testimony. Senators, any other questions for any of our witnesses? Thank you each for being here. Thank you very much. You're excused. The chair calls Fran Rhodes, Corey Moore Luther, C.J. Grisham, Aaron Walter, and Brady Gray. Looking for, there's Fran Rhodes, Corey Moore Luther, C.J. Grisham, Aaron Walter, Brady Gray, please. The chair calls Biz Thornton. Biz Thornton. All right, that will take your time. We're fine. You got plenty of time. That will complete this panel. And so we'll begin over here on my left. I think that's Fran Rhodes over there. Ms. Rhodes, welcome back. Oh, hold on one second. There's a seat right here on the end. I'm sorry. You take your time. You get over there. You get set. We'll be ready for you in a few minutes. Ms. Rhodes, welcome back. Introduce yourself. Get close to that microphone and go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Fran Rhodes. I am president of True Texas Project, representing myself and True Texas Project in support of this bill. I am not an expert on anything here. I am just an old-fashioned grandmother looking for common sense. I represent a lot of supporters throughout the state of Texas who are also searching for common sense in this crazy world that we live in. This bill is common sense. Sex is not a state of mind. It is a biological fact, and it should not be changed, and government should not embrace the idea that it can be changed. It cannot. God created us man and woman, and you can't change that. So please exercise your common sense and pass this bill. Thank you.
And thanks for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself, and go ahead.
Thank you. How's this for sound? Am I close enough?
Loud, thank you, very good.
Okay.
Thank you for making sure.
Great. I first began working with Texas in 2019. I was recruited to consult on a hurricane response hub designed to increase capacity and communication across Texas.
Make sure and give us your name while you're give us your name too. Go ahead.
I'll end with my name if you're okay with that.
Just so we get it. You go ahead. Thanks.
We'll get it. I was here a part of a hurricane response hub designed to increase capacity with communication across Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, and Puerto Rico after the devastating 2017 hurricanes. That experience led me to consult on a Texas-specific effort exploring housing, employment, and mental health impacts on Texans experiencing the greatest vulnerabilities. In evaluating these proposed bills and this process, I feel appalled by the lack of consideration for the broader impact of even the proposal of these bills, not only on all Texans, but the irresponsible example this provides for the entire country. Every bill proposed by a single author is a waste of Texans' tax dollars. Every bill proposed by a single author means they did zero work to explore the harmful impact that bill could have on all of Texas. It's irresponsible, it's disrespectful, and it's lazy legislation. By proposing a single author bill, referring it to committee, and requiring everyday Texans to travel hours, spend hard-earned money on fuel, hotels, food, take time off of work, take kids out of school for their few precious minutes to testify, this is not governance. This is an abuse of power, and it's shameful. Recently, I rewatched a film based on a true story. There was a scene with this person in the middle of a bridge with a raging river underneath. There were people on either end of the bridge, all moving slowly towards the person on the edge. The person was slowly and calmly reminding them of their siblings, their parents, their colleagues, and friends who would miss them if they jumped. The person responded, "I'd rather live free or die." I'm here today advocating for suicide prevention and want to ensure every person in your districts are familiar with the suicide prevention hotline because these single author bills collectively increase suicide for everybody. I ask you to refocus your energy on infrastructure that will improve access to safe housing, stable employment, and affordable mental health care without fear of discrimination and harassment. Stop wasting taxpayer dollars by proposing irresponsible single author bills. The person on the bridge lived. They escaped an abusive relationship. They traveled to a place where they could safely change their name, change their clothes, and occasionally return to their siblings, cousins, parents, colleagues, and friends, and demanded to be called by their freed name, Harriet Tubman. My name is Corey Moore Luther, and I'm here representing myself as a small business owner, a sibling, a child, a grandchild, a colleague, and a friend, and I confidently oppose every bill proposed by only a single author, including 406, authored by Middleton. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for this bill. Thank you, Senator Middleton. My name is CJ Grisham. I'm a civil rights attorney here in Texas, focusing mostly on First and Second Amendment. I want to talk, and I support this bill. I think I said that. You know, we, especially in the law, those of you that are attorneys know that there are exceptions to hearsay, which is like government documents. And they're also self-authenticating. So you have a birth certificate can be admitted without having to authenticate it because it's a self-authenticating document. So now what we're telling, if we don't have this bill, we're telling society that why are we self-authenticating something that isn't real? A man will never be a woman. A woman will never be a man. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a man dressing up as a woman and pretending to be a woman. By all means, he can do that. There's nothing wrong with a woman dressing up as a man and pretending to be a man and doing surgeries to make herself look like a man or feel like a man. That's fine. Let her do that. What we don't have to do, and what this bill fixes, is forcing the rest of us to go along with the delusion that a person can be something that they're not, just because in their head they feel that way. There are a lot of legal implications why this bill is necessary, because again, we do have self-authenticating documents. And if you're at trial and you bring up something and they say this is a female, because the document says female, but the person's up there testifying saying, no, I'm a man, well, we have legal issues here. This fixes it. Everyone should be treated with respect, including the people who don't want to go along with the delusions of transgender ideology. And I urge passage of this bill.
And thanks for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Thank you. Brady Gray, testifying for the bill. Thank you, Chairman Hughes, members. My name is Brady Gray. I serve as president of Texas Family Project. At Family Project, we work every day to protect Texas children and strengthen families by engaging in cultural, community, and policy efforts that uphold the timeless values that Texans hold dear. One of the most important ways we do this is by standing for truth, especially when it comes to something as foundational as our biological sex. Grounding our laws in objective reality isn't just good policy, it's essential to preserving the truth of who we are as human beings. This bill is not only about biological accuracy, it's about honoring that truth. Psalm 139:14 says, "I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Our identity is not something created by culture or driven by confusion. It is a divine gift from God, male and female, He created us. Preserving that truth on our most foundational legal document, the birth certificate, is not an act of discrimination, but one of dignity and clarity. Today, we face increasing pressures to redefine identity based on feelings instead of facts. According to the CDC, 0.002% of babies are born with ambiguous genitalia, yet we are being asked to rebuild our entire legal and social framework around rare exceptions and activist ideology. This bill wisely allows for flexibility in those very rare medical cases while protecting the integrity of the birth certificate from being used as a tool for ideological affirmation. Identity matters, and our public records must reflect truth, not political trends. As parents, we are called to lovingly guide our children, not affirm every passing feeling. As a society, we bear the responsibility to protect our kids from irreversible decisions rooted in confusion. And as Texans, we must remain clear. Biology is not bigotry, it's truth. I want to thank Senator Middleton for bringing this bill forward, and I urge each of you to support it. Let's ensure that Texas continues to affirm truth, honor God's design, and protect the integrity of identity from the very beginning of life. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for your testimony. Welcome, and since you're on the end of the table, I'll remind you to get close to the microphone. Those seats are a little further apart. That's why on the end, I always remind folks. Please do that. Welcome. Introduce yourself.
Hi, how am I on volume? Is that good? Okay. My name is Biz Thornton. I am here representing myself as well as the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry, and I am opposed to this bill. Make no mistake, this bill will harm transgender people, and I am here today to talk about just one way that this law will harm intersex Texans throughout the state. Approximately 1 in 2,000 babies are born with differences to their sexual anatomy, and these babies are intersex. Many parents are pressured and coerced into agreeing to completely unnecessary so-called corrective surgery on their newborn children, which can lead to lifelong psychological and physical pain and struggle. When parents are told that all babies are truly male or female and that some babies just need to be so-called corrected, and when parents feel legally forced to choose between male and female on their children's birth certificates, that adds to this pressure. I understand that you may believe that allowing for corrections to so-called clerical errors will allow intersex people to change their legal sex at some point, if necessary, in the future. But even if this were true, the legal necessity to choose male or female on the birth certificate already does harm. Please do not cement this pressure even further. Trans and intersex solidarity forever. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Senators, any questions for any of our witnesses? Senator Hinojosa, you're recognized.
I just wanted to get the stats correct. Mr. Gray, you said that it was 0.002%. What was the stat you gave us?
According to CDC, yes, sir.
CDC. And can you repeat that, please?
Say that again.
What was the stat?
0.002% of babies are born with what is considered ambiguous genitalia.
Okay. And then you had a stat too. What was your stat?
Yes, my statistic comes from Interact, it's an intersex advocacy organization.
And what was the stat?
1 in 2,000.
1 in 2,000, what?
Babies are born with differences in their sexual anatomy that may result in pressure to their parents to get this corrected.
Okay, and what was your source again?
What's that? Oh, my source is from Interact. They're an intersex advocacy organization.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to get the stats.
Thank you, members. Any other questions for these witnesses? Thank each of you for being here. You're excused. The chair calls Aaron Walter. Aaron Walter Tracy Shannon. Aaron and Tracy are the last two witnesses come on down. That's the last two witnesses we have registered to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 406. So if we've not called your name, please make your way down so that we can hear from you. And we'll begin on my left, your right. Introduce yourself, give us your testimony. Welcome.
I'm Tracy Shannon, and I'm here on behalf of myself, and I am testifying in favor of the bill. I'm a trans widow. In 2009, my husband's records were falsified to say that he was a female. The first thing he did was have his driver's license changed, not his birth certificate. So there is a problem with this bill. It will not correct this. We still need to close loopholes in the Texas Family Code and in the Texas Transportation Code. But I'll go on. We went to court where I found I was divorcing a legal female. Not only was I betrayed by my husband of 15 years, I was betrayed by the state that I love and call home. On paper, I was represented as a lesbian. I'm a Christian, and this violates tenets of my faith. Daily, I was threatened to have pronouns enforced or possibly be held in contempt of court. My ex has since gone on to use female restrooms, play female sports, and is a 4-time women's golf champion. He's been recognized as a woman of distinction in a male-dominated industry, all because a judge wrote an order to falsify his sex, prioritizing a man's feelings above his family and what is good for women. I was not, sorry, I said that. Falsification of sex is the golden ticket that allows men into female spaces, and it's more than bathrooms and sports. It's women-owned business certifications. It's grants, scholarships, and recognitions and awards for women. It's set-asides for women. It's professional, social, charitable organizations for women. It's intimate care, prisons, jails. Corrections officers are being forced to do searches on men who say they're women because they request a female. And females are asking for female carers, and they're getting men who have documents that say they're female. As long as there's legal falsification of sex, there are no female-only spaces or categories. Women are born, not made. A woman is not a feeling. Women are quite literally born this way. You can pass all the bills to protect a woman this and woman that, but until we end falsification of sex and reverse all these orders in Texas, there will be no female-only spaces. Sex mimics can use men's restrooms and freshen their makeup in the men's restrooms. Real women do not need prostate checks. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is the Reverend Erin Walter, and I'm proud to serve as the Minister and Executive Director for the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry and a board member for Texas Impact. I appreciate all of you and your time and your efforts as servants of the state of Texas. I'm a native Texan, a cisgender woman, and a mother, and I'm here in profound opposition to this bill, in solidarity with my trans and intersex friends and family. As a minister, I understand the pain, and I hear your pain, and I understand that there are a lot of perspectives on this. My perspective is that gender expansiveness and gender diversity has always been. Many religions recognize it, and mine does. So when we talk about a faith perspective, and we recognize the state of Texas recognizes the diversity of faith perspectives, mine opposes this bill. I'm here on behalf of Texans from 40 congregations across the state of Texas, Unitarian Universalist congregations from Dallas, Plano, San Antonio, El Paso, all around the state. And we ask you to please support our trans community and oppose Senate Bill 406. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Senators, any questions for either of our witnesses? Thank you both for being here. Thank you very much. Those are all the witnesses who have registered to testify on for or against Senate Bill 406. So I'll ask, is there anyone present wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 406? Please come on down. Anyone else, please make your way down so that we can hear from you before public testimony closes. Go ahead and have a seat, and we'll get some details, then we'll let you of course, you'll be welcome to testify. Tell me your name.
Hi, can you hear me? Is this all right? My name is Abby Criswell.
Hold tight, Abby, just a moment. Okay. And thank you. We're going to get you a card to fill out just so we'll have a record of your testimony. Okay. You may have registered online, but it's not showing up, and we want to make sure you get to testify. So welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Abby Criswell. I was born and raised in Texas, and I'm a very proud Texan. And I'm here to say that I am profoundly against this Senate bill, and I would like to speak more about that. So I came here today because I just can't stand for what this bill is trying to do to Texas and all Texans. It's a gross attack, I believe, on trans people and a significant overreach of government power, and not something I believe in. I believe in a Texas where everybody has the basic freedom to exist and be who they are and communicate that to the world. And I don't believe that the government should have the power to tell people who they are or try to control that in any way. So I'm here to say that trans people have always existed, and this bill would be an effort to try to erase trans people, but trans people will continue to exist, and this bill will not change that. And I believe that it will only cause a lot of harm to the trans community. So I'm asking you to please not support this bill and to not harm Texans that are here and want to live here and be who they are.
And thank you for your testimony. And we did find your information, so no need to fill out a card. Thank you for registering. We've got you. Members, any questions for Abby? Thank you for being here. Please go ahead.
Could I actually add one more thing?
Well,
is that all right?
Well, sure.
Okay.
You bet.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to say I was hearing other witnesses quote scripture about how women and men are like people are born as either women and men. And not only are women and men, that's like a gender thing, but female and male, I think is what people were trying to say as like a sex thing. And as someone who is educated in biology, that's simply not true. So that's just fundamentally false. As a biologist, I'm here to tell you that. So just the sex categories of male and female don't capture the truth. So anyone who is saying this bill is about the truth, this bill is about supporting the truth, that's just not scientifically, factually correct. So I'm here to say that. And also, as someone who was raised Christian and has like pretty profound Christian beliefs, it really disappointed me to hear people quoting scripture in support of a bill that's going to cause so much harm and just, I believe, is so fundamentally not Christian and doesn't align with like my beliefs and what I believe Christianity to be. So I wanted to add that here. Thank you for hearing my testimony. And once again, I just wanted to plead with y'all to not support a bill that I believe will cause profound harm to Texans and the Texas community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Sir, if there's any questions for Ms. Criswell, thank you for being here. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 406? Are you ready? You're raising your hand to testify? Come on down, have a seat. We'll get your information.
Okay, hello. I am Mercado Rodriguez.
Hold on, pull that microphone a little closer to you.
Hello, I'm Mercado Rodriguez.
Hold on just a minute, Mr. Rodriguez. If you don't mind, before you leave, will you fill that out? You can go ahead and testify. If you promise me you'll fill that out and give it to us before you leave, okay?
Yes.
Welcome. Introduce yourself again and go ahead.
I am Mercado Rodriguez. And the thing is, I wanted to be able to testify towards this bill that's been going around because I've been pretty much strongly affected.
Get closer to that mic so we can hear you, okay?
I've been strongly affected because I am a trans man. And the thing is that living in a red state, and a red state in particular that has been, it's just, sir, I wish to speak to you directly.
You can do that, but if you speak into the microphone, we'll make sure it's on the record and everybody who's watching can hear you as well. If you want to have a private conversation, we can have a meeting in the office, but here we want to make sure your testimony is, if you want to testify on the bill, we want to make sure we can hear you. So go ahead.
No, I wish to speak to you directly, sir, when it comes to the bill. Please.
Okay, we can have a private conversation later, but if you're going to testify here, we want to be able to hear you. So you can decide, okay? I'm happy to meet with you privately, but if you're going to testify, we want to be able to, everybody needs to be able to hear you.
All right, then I'll testify. I'll talk to you afterwards.
You bet. Get that microphone closer so we can hear you.
Sorry, sir. I wish to speak with you directly afterwards.
That's fine. You bet. We'll do that. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 406? Seeing and hearing none, public testimony is closed. Bill's left pending at this time.